Oh, and welcome to the Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Samueli, and with me today, of course, is co-founder of the Gaggle, Peter Lavelle.
You can't do deer in the headlights when it's planned. Okay.
No, that's right. It was, I don't know. Somehow it was just a little.
It was my fault because I was distracting you. I'm sorry.
Yes, yeah. Well, it's okay. Anyway, everybody, pencils down, coffee pots down, kitchen utensils down, breakfast down, everything. It's time for the live stream. We need absolute focus on what we're going to talk about, and that means you can use pencils just to take notes, but that's all. Not to do your shopping list or anything like that. Anyway, so one interesting story that I guess broke today. I don't know whether break is perhaps a little bit strong, but there seems to be indications. That's all. There indication that there might be a meeting between Trump and Putin in Beijing later this year in September. Because
Yeah, but that would be on the sidelines. It'd be
yes,
side.
that's right. But still, a meeting is a meeting, and it all depends on how much each side puts into the meeting. I mean, it could last a couple of hours on the sidelines. So this was a story that it was reported in TASS, and here we have Putin Trump could meet in China if U.S. president agrees to come. China will widely celebrate the 80th anniversary of the victory over Japan in World War II, and Russian President Vladimir Putin has been invited to take part. And Russian President Vladimir Putin is going to Beijing in September for celebrations of the 80th anniversary of the victory of Japan, and he could meet with his U.S. counterpart, Donald Trump, there if the U.S. leader decides to travel to China at the same time. Peskov said.
George, I mean, you're better at numbers. Is this after the 50, before or after the 50
It
days?
will be after, because I think the way it's been calculated, the 50 days runs out just about Labor Day, and I think Labor Day is by September the 1st this year. So it'll be just afterwards. But of course, with Trump, everything gets delayed. I mean, he says, it's definitely September the 1st, and then, well, maybe we'll make it October the 15th. I mean, so, I don't think anything is set in stone.
He can say, I didn't tell you which calendar I was using. It's on you. It's on you.
That's right. Anyway,
we're using the French Revolution.
That's right, exactly.
Because they had 10 days a week. Okay.
And he goes on. The Times reported that the leaders of the three victor countries, Russia, China, and the U.S., could meet at the celebrations in China. Peskov previously told TASS that the Kremlin had no information about whether such a meeting was possible. China will widely celebrate the victory anniversary, and Putin has been invited to take part. It's unclear whether Trump will visit Beijing at the same time, but the Times said this is unlikely. Now, it is true that on the face of it, it is a little unlikely why Trump would go to Beijing to commemorate the 80th anniversary of.
He didn't go to Moscow.
Yeah, he didn't go to Moscow, but at the same time, that was a little more fraught. So, I mean, it seemed like he was thinking about it, but basically he decided against it. But nonetheless, it's one of those things where you can say, well, if he does go, and it's not impossible he'll go, it would be with a view to meeting Putin. This would be an opportunity to meet Putin. I don't know whether, I mean, he's been indicating throughout the year that he wants this meeting. This will certainly be an opportunity for a meeting, if he wants it, and he seems to want it.
Yeah, I could just see it now. They're standing on the Pantheon, looking over the troops, and then we hear that Donald Trump, he's in the green room back. He would like to work with you.
Right.
Well, tell him the parade isn't over yet. Okay, tell him to wait. No,
Right.
there's a reason. You meet because there's a reason to meet. You don't meet to meet. Come on.
That's the Russian attitude, but that's not necessarily Trump's attitude. I think Trump likes the idea of meetings. I think he likes the idea of summits and using his personal aura, charisma, and so on. So I think he likes the idea of meeting without any kind of an agenda. That's not the view of the Russians, but I think if he does go, and I think Putin's obviously going to go, then I think there will be a meeting. It probably won't be a substantive meeting, but I think that there will be a meeting, and that will certainly be an event. I mean, whether anything comes out of it or not, I mean, it'll be quite a notable event.
He would have to get something out of it to make it worth his while. Okay. I just don't see it. I mean, that's why I asked my first question. I said before or after the 50 days, and it's after the 50 days. So then we got a ways to go if you're working on a Trump calendar, whatever that calendar is. So
that could be, but that could be an opportunity for Trump to say, well, you know what, I'm not going to impose these tariffs on September the 1st. I'm going to wait a bit. I'm going to wait till I meet Putin in Beijing. So that at least gives him an opportunity. I mean, it's only a slight delay.
When you're looking for excuses, you're in a bad place.
But I think he is. Look, I mean, that's how he operates. I mean, I don't know any.
I mean, I would just out of curiosity. I mean, when Trump was in the real estate business in New York, did he just meet? He's met Putin before, so I mean, it's not like the first time.
Yes. Well, I think he did. He was a kind of a social animal back in the days in New York. I mean, he used to party.
Well, I mean, my point. I mean, his meeting with what was it? Is Helsinki? No, or was it Reykjavik?
Helsinki? But I don't know. I'm not sure Helsinki was their last meeting because.
No, but I mean, the first one, he smooshed. I mean, it was very cordial. The atmosphere was really good. And then until people like Fiona Hill wanted to spoil it, and then, I mean, I thought maybe I should create an incident and faint.
I just remember that, just those lines.
Everything cringe.
That's right. Exactly.
So
I was going to create an incident. I was going to collapse. Just sort of to do this. Keep in mind, she's a staffer. It's not her place to have views on whether Trump should be meeting and being friendly with Putin. If she doesn't like it, she resigns. I mean, I was going to have a scene. I was going to do faint so that everyone would be distracted, and that would bring the meeting to an end. I mean, what kind of a nonsense is that? She's a staffer. She wanted that job for still unexplained reasons. Given the Trump,
very clear reasons.
I think it's very clear too.
To do a little bit of sabotage. That's what it was.
Right. Exactly.
CIA. Okay. I mean.
Yes. Yeah. That's right. Now, so that may happen because the G20 summit this year is going to be in South Africa, and I don't. I actually, now that I think of it, it's like probably Trump won't attend that.
I don't think so.
He's no fan of South Africa, so I doubt whether he's going to visit South Africa for the G20 summit.
Or doesn't this tell you a lot here? Oh, he can't go there. He can't do this. I mean, this is self-ownership. He's owning himself. He's ratioing himself all over the place.
Right.
I mean,
right.
If, and this is a big if, and we can go back to the first day of his second administration, if he was truly an arbiter, above it all, like he wants to present himself, which is completely false. But let's just say, we need to turn the page. We need to move on. I not challenge. I welcome a meeting in a neutral capital as soon as possible. Meet President Putin. I want to tell him what I think. What's going on? He can tell me. I don't need all the white noise around me from this lobby and this group. Let's just spend a weekend and just talk. I mean, that's magic. That's magic in my mind.
I
Okay.
think. Well, I think Russians would have said no to that proposal, because I think they were badly burnt over Helsinki, which was the last time they met without any kind of an agenda,
Good
and
point.
and
My
that's why I think
point
they'd be
is
reluctant.
that Trump is unable to separate himself from deep state policy,
Right.
and he's drowning in it, left, right, and center. You're
Yeah.
probably right. They would have rejected it, but I think maybe under certain circumstances. I mean, I don't think Trump really wanted to have the media around, to sabotage
Right.
him from the,
Right.
CNN. Have you still are you continuing to insist that Russia not interfere?
That's
Or
I think that's what it
is
was.
exactly what they would do. Okay.
That's right. That was a summit because they did meet subsequently. I think they met. Well, they met at the November 2018, the centenary of the armistice. They met there. I can't remember whether they had any negotiations, but they did meet. And then they met at the G20 in 2019. Um, and that was quite a friendly meeting, and I think they did talk, but it wasn't really. I mean, obviously, it wasn't a summit. That was the meeting. You remember with I think Theresa May. You remember when Theresa May was shaking hands with Putin, and she couldn't bring herself to look at him. So it was this sort of shaking hands.
These people, they're
Yeah,
so silly.
that was at the height of the Skripal's.
Yeah, so but
Hysteria.
it's always at the height of something, the height of
Yes.
the Skripals. It's the height of Russiagate,
Yes.
which we all know. And maybe you just want to just a minute or so to talk about that here because we talked about it at
Well,
length yesterday.
I want to do that because I do want to just to take a brief look at some of the material that.
Okay,
Uh,
let me ask you real quick. Okay,
Mhm.
maybe this is a jumping off point here. George and I talked about this yesterday at some length,
Mhm.
and as far as new data points, maybe a couple things, but they were data points that would say, "Yeah, I assumed that."
Right.
Okay, so the way I introduce this topic now is that they're affirming what we already know,
Right.
everyone.
Right. That's right. And I do want to say. I mean, I want to ask you something. Just because I haven't really made up my mind on this. I mean, Michael Tracy. He's very smart, but he has a certain acid tongue to him, and he says,
I think he has zero friends.
yeah, I think.
I mean, you even get the impression that Glenn Greenwald doesn't like him all that much.
No, I don't think so. I think he likes having him around, but I'm not. Yeah, I'm not sure he likes it. But he has a certain acid tongue, and he said, "Yeah, I'm all for publication of RussiaGate stuff, but the only reason Tulsi Gabbard is doing this is to suck up to Trump. She just wants to worm her way back into Trump's good graces after the humiliations she suffered last month over Iran. And as I say, that's kind of a mean way of presenting it. But what do you think? You think that's true?
Yeah, but I think they were going to do this anyway. Okay,
Hmm.
so I mean, both can be true at the same time. Um, what is mysterious to me, and I think I can speak for George on this point, is that during the first Trump administration, he made no effort. I mean, he had the power to do it and say, Jeff Sessions, you're not doing me any good. You're gone. Bye. Okay.
Listen,
I mean, a much more forceful chief
right.
executive would have started, pushing back much harder instead of being impotent here.
Yep.
Probably would have told Lindsay, if you pass any legislation protecting Mueller, you'll never play golf with me again.
Yeah.
He didn't do any of that.
He
Okay,
didn't do anything.
now this is what makes it paradoxical: is that this is one thing. I know for a fact because you and I talked about it. We talked about it with guests on the podcast. Is that will Trump finally get to the bottom of Russiagate? And we were all in agreement. Okay,
Right.
so the fact that Tulsi Gabbard is doing it doesn't surprise me.
Right.
Is the timing? Well, then Michael Tracy could be absolutely right on this. I don't think it helps. Okay, because Russiagate, unlike other things, is very, very niche. It's a very niche thing. Okay, we probably know everybody not personally, but know of everyone that is really delved into. Aaron Mate, for example, has done a good job. Glenn Greenwald's done a good job. Jimmy Dore, Tucker Carlson. Okay, it's a niche thing. Okay, because it is kind of complicated. It is kind of convoluted. Okay, you really have to put your nose to the grindstone to figure out what's going on here. That's when you start creating charts with pins and iron and stuff like that. Okay, it was eventually.
I think it's right. But what is interesting precisely is that the various Trump so-called allies had opportunities over the years to disclose this information. Mike Pompeo had been director of the CIA. He didn't reveal anything. Then you had John Ratcliffe, who's obviously the man from Tel Aviv. He had Tulsi Gabbard's job during Trump's first term. He was the director of national intelligence. He didn't disclose any of this. William Barr, Attorney General, he didn't disclose any of this. Then Durham completely wasted, I don't know how many millions of dollars of taxpayer money going after this obvious Russian hustler, Igor Danchenko, and he failed. He couldn't even get a conviction of him. I mean, this was
to be fair, no Democrat is ever convicted in Washington D.C. Okay,
right. No, that's exactly right. But
yeah, I mean, Durham, he just went out just barely around the edges, just barely, because I can remember it very well is that he did do an enormous amount of research on extremely minute things. He was not interested in the big picture, which was the big disappointment.
That's the point. But it was obvious even at the time, you're thinking, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Igor Danchenko, he's your central figure in this plot. I mean, it was a plot to take down a president, and you're talking about this guy who is obviously just a hustler trying to make ends meet in Washington. And so, I'll spin a story. They're going to pay me money. I'm going to spin a story.
Ended up being an intelligence asset.
Right, exactly. That's what the CIA did, because the CIA essentially had to keep him under wraps because the congressional investigators were going to get onto him, like Kash Patel and Devin Nunes. So the only way they can protect him is saying, "Oh, he's a confidential human source. You can't talk to him." Totally. And they knew at the time, because Danchenko said, "Yeah, I just made this up. I mean, I was talking to people over drinks, and sure, yeah."
I was under a lot of pressure. I had to say something.
That's right. Just having drinks over a bar. Yeah. What were they offering? What's the thing? Carter Page, was it 19% of Gazprom? 19%. I mean, can you imagine how many billions of dollars that was?
If you had 19% of, I think it was Rosneft.
Was it Rosneft? Either Rosneft or Gazprom, yeah.
That you would be a billionaire overnight.
Yeah, we'd be a billionaire.
Well, don't you remember during the hearings that Comey was asked about Gazprom, not Rosneft in this case, and he didn't know what it was.
Yes.
The director. It's one of the largest energy companies in the world.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
He didn't know what it was.
Yes.
That's what we're dealing with.
Well, Comey was, of course.
Okay. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, I'm just going to say Comey was the master of replying to everything. I don't know. I don't know. I don't remember.
I can remember it was one of these clowns on the cable shows. So do you, Mr. Director, do you believe that there is a P tape? I don't know. I don't know. Then what are you in this job for? Find out. Get somebody that does know.
Don't know.
That's what's so infuriating. Here's a person. The FBI has vast coercive resources. Coercive is the operative word there.
Right. That's right.
And you can't tell us?
That's right. That's it.
You defund the FBI.
That's
okay?
Right.
Defund it.
He was a nasty, devious character.
He used to say, "Oh Lordy."
He's
from New York. Nobody in New York talks that way. He's not from Texas.
But the thing is that when you say, "I don't know," it's you make yourself kind of likable. You're very humble. You're saying, I don't. You're not throwing your weight around. You're not pretending to be smarter than everybody else. You're saying, I don't know. I mean, he wasn't doing it in a way in which it looked like, hey, you're just obfuscating. You're just trying to avoid answering the question. It looked like, I just don't know. I'm like you. I'm just Joe Schmo, on the street. I can't answer the
I must have been in the coffee room at the time when it was
exactly.
discussed.
Yeah, getting a bowl of soup, and it just, I don't know. But anyway, I thought just we could take a look at some of the highlights of what Tulsi found, and here's the here's her document, and and this is why it was quite interesting that she starts off with the overwhelming evidence that demonstrates how after President Trump won the 2016 election, President Obama and his national security cabinet members manufactured and politicized intelligence to lay the groundwork for what was essentially a years-long coup against President Trump. Um, and then she just itemizes in the months leading up to the November 2016 elections, the intelligence community consistently assessed that Russia is probably not trying to influence the election by using cyber means. On December the 7th, so this is December 7th, this is 2 days before that big meeting um, in the Oval Office. On December the 7th, 2016, after the election, talking points were prepared for Clapper, stating foreign adversaries did not use cyber attacks on election infrastructure to alter the US presidential election outcome. Um, and then she talks about the meeting of December the 9th. And I'm going to show everyone who attended that meeting. Um, and then that she says, after the meeting, DNI Clapper's executive assistant sent an email to IC leaders tasking them with creating a new IC assessment per the president's request that details the tools Moscow used and actions it took to influence the 2016 election.
No, so we're changing the script, everyone.
That's
Okay,
right.
we're
That's right.
rewriting it. Okay.
Exactly. That's exactly what they did. And then Obama officials leaked false statements to media outlets, including the Washington Post, claiming Russia has attempted through cyber means to interfere in, if not actively influence, the outcome of an election. And then there was the famous intelligence community assessment that was made by Brennan on January the 6th, 2017. And so this is the early memo, August 2016. It says, we are working with CIA on a PDB, Presidential Daily Briefing, submission on this threat. The thrust of the analysis is that there is no indication of a Russian threat to directly manipulate the actual vote count through cyber means. That was August the 31st. And then September the 12th, this is IC publishes an intelligence community assessment on cyber threats to election. We judge that foreign adversaries do not have and will probably not obtain the capabilities to successfully execute widespread and undetected cyber attacks on the diverse set of information technologies and infrastructures used to support the November 16 presidential election. And then 2 days later, this was kind of interesting. 2 days later, the IC publishes the aforementioned presidential daily briefing with near identical finding. It finds that foreign adversaries do not have the capability to covertly overturn the vote outcome. And then on October the 7th, we have ODNI and DHS suppress the above September intelligence finding in their press release that states with confidence the Russian government directed the DNC and DCCC hacks. Their statement omitted the fact that the FBI and NSA had low confidence in attributing the data leaks from these entities to Russia. Remember that was that they issued that statement on October the 7th, just 1 month before the election. That was the Jay Johnson and Clapper. And it says, note, there's still supporting evidence indicating the Russian government directed hacking of DNC and DCC. And then on December,
I'd love to know what that supporting evidence is. Okay?
exactly, exactly.
Because there's no mention here yet of WikiLeaks.
Yeah.
And what's his Rich, the gentleman's name?
Yes, Seth Rich.
Seth Rich. Okay.
Yeah, right. And that's the interesting thing, because now Tulsi said she was on Maria Bartiromo, and she said that this week she's going to release more information. And that is interesting. What else is she going to release? She says she's going to release further.
Well, okay, let's take a quick break here. So far, what? Mm-hmm. Well, okay. I didn't know. Obviously, we don't know the minutia, but the rough outlines that she just said we already knew. Okay?
Yeah.
But what I think was interesting is he's leading with Obama, mm-hmm. which is all nice and fine, but Obama isn't around much longer. And Russiagate lasted much longer after that.
Yes.
And so what, until more information is released, or until let me put it this way, until there's information released that we don't know about already, or contradicts what we probably already know. But focusing on Obama is all nice and fine, but that's not the whole story here. Now, it's attractive because there's a lot of people that don't like Obama. A lot of people were disappointed with him. I think what Obama did was despicable to derail the man that's going to take over right after him. I mean, that just, at least in the culture that I was brought up, that's just dirty pool. That's just not nice. Okay. You lost, you weren't on the ballot. Okay. Right. And if, or it's your fault that you were, your candidate, Hillary Clinton lost, and you're all butthurt about that, okay? But the electorate spoke, okay, and that's what it's supposed to be about. He could have left in a more magnanimous way, but no president that we're aware of in the entire history of the United States did what Barack Obama did.
No, that's right. And so the question is, that's absolutely right. But what Obama set in motion, continued after his departure. Because,
exactly.
The thing was, if you were the Michael Flynn thing, it was very odd. You remember, it's very, very odd that when Trump goes to meet Obama, whatever date was, November the 10th or whatever, in the Oval Office. And what does Obama talk about? He said, whatever you do, you don't appoint Michael Flynn, which is a very odd thing for a president to say.
And he put Michael Flynn's name next to Kim Jong-un.
That's right.
These are the two people you have to worry about.
Exactly. Now, you'd have to think, why didn't he not want Flynn? I think he knew Flynn would figure out what had been going on very, very quickly. I mean, with his intelligence background, he would uncover the dirty pool that the Obama administration had been playing for months.
What Michael Flynn said, this is one of the most memorable points of the Russiagate hoax, is that when the incoming Obama team was supposedly being briefed, no, they were being interrogated.
Yes, that's right. That's exactly right. But again, Flynn, because he knows something about intelligence, said, hey, this isn't a briefing. We were being interrogated. They told us nothing, but they were just asking us questions. They were obviously extracting information from us. This is no briefing. So he does that. And then they set him up in January with that ridiculous telephone conversation with Kislyak, which that's all happening at roughly about the same time in early January, and said, "Oh, Logan Act. Oh, maybe we can get him on the Logan Act."
It was Biden that came up with that idea.
It was Biden. That's right. And some of the Obama holdovers were still in office. Trump had been somewhat, to say the least, laggard in getting rid of them, because Mary McCord, a very sinister figure, she was still working, and Sally Yates. Sally Yates and Mary McCord were instrumental in the downfall of Flynn. And so, but you're right, because the key thing was that they got that the warrant, the search warrant, or the intelligence warrant, what's it called, surveillance warrant from the the Pfizer warrant from the Pfizer court against Carter Page. Once they had that, then they could use that to spy on everybody else, and that was renewed over and over again. They kept renewing that Pfizer warrant against Carter Page. So they did. Obama put everything in place, and if Mueller had played things a little differently, that could have been quite tricky for Trump.
Yeah, but why is it important? Okay, because as we talked about yesterday, are there going to be criminal proceedings? Well, as far as I know, the statute of limitations
on the perjury. But that's an interesting thing. Can they?
I
don't know.
Why now? Okay, Michael Tracy, for him, it's a diversion. They were going to release it anyway, and it could also be a diversion. And both can be true at the same time. But obviously, in my mind, do I think that Brennan and Comey are going to go to jail? No, I don't think so. I don't think so. Okay. Do I think anyone that's going to go to jail for this? Nope, I don't think so. All right. But what is the point? When Tulsi Gabbard was talking about accountability, she was talking about historical accountability.
Right.
And this will please Trump a lot. Okay.
Right. No, I think it will. But I do think that a creative legal mind could build legal cases here. I mean, I think that there's enough in the statute to
obstruction.
Yeah, that's right. But look, they went after Trump, and they were extremely creative in kind of inventing new laws, just to go after him. No other president had been persecuted in this way. They went after Trump. So absolutely, if Pam Bondi put her mind to it, she could put together a very creative legal team that could think about how they could build a case.
How likely do you think that is?
Quite unlikely because of her. I think it's that I think she's just temperamentally not the right person for that job. I would imagine if Matt Gaetz had Attorney General, I think he would have put together a very creative legal team to build cases.
Well, I mean, it might have been better to have Matt Gaetz because, when he would come across people say, "Hey, Matt, we got pictures of you," and then he can turn around and say, "I got pictures of you." That's the kind of Matt Gaetz type of character you really need here. I just think, and this is my natural cynicism, is that they don't want to hurt these institutions.
No, I think in her case, I think that's undoubtedly the case with her. I think she's always been an institutionalist, and I don't even know why Trump selected her. I mean, I know she took
pretty.
She's pretty. Yeah, I know he's got.
That's it.
Yeah.
Well, and how many countless Fox News appearances so Trump has it on all of the time.
Right.
I mean, look at the administration. Wait, did they go to a human resources agency? No, they went to the primetime Fox.
Right, exactly. But it's I think again a shocking dereliction of duty on Trump's part, because there are killer lawyers. Trump's who are killer lawyers. You put them in place. They're not necessarily pretty. In fact, they're not pretty at all. But they are killer lawyers. Those are the people you want. I mean, the idea of getting her, who just looks nice. I mean, did she distinguish herself in any way as Attorney General of Florida? I don't remember her doing.
Well, George, it goes back. I think it's how we ended our discussion yesterday, and I think it dovetails into what we're discussing right now. For those of you commenting, it is germane, and I'm going to give the reason why I think it is that, and I'm not going to make friends saying this. Trump campaigned against the deep state. Right. Well, he's embraced the deep state, and he's not going to do anything that will institute, because there's if you can flatter him and you can kiss his ring in other places, he's going to go along. I'm sorry to say that. I'm going to disappoint people, but that's the entire history of this second term. Okay,
that's right.
So he's not going to go around with a sledgehammer what was it Kennedy said he wanted to smash the CIA into a
Well,
house?
I'm not sure he actually said that. That's
Yeah,
attributed to him, but he's never said that on the record. So if
people say
that,
that
yeah,
some people said that he
it's
said.
exactly. But it's kind of third hand. You know, there's
Yeah.
no record of his ever having said that.
Well,
But
it's one of the best. It's one of the best third hand.
exactly. That's right. But I just want to take another look
I
at
just
that.
don't think he's going to go after these institutions. Okay,
But
and again, before you go, accountability in the way it's being framed. People have the world has to know what these people did, and that will be the punishment.
Right. No, I think that's right. And here's the go back there. And so this is December the 7th, and now this is blah blah. You know, we assess the foreign adversaries did not use. This is still December the 7th, and then a few hours later, this is after initially co-authoring the presidential daily briefing, the FBI, led by Comey, inexplicably withdraws from coordinating on the product and notifies other IC officials that the FBI will be drafting a dissent. So that's a dissent on that the Russians were not involved in the cyber hacking. And then later in the afternoon, a senior PDB official kills the PDB based on some new guidance. And then the post-election PDB, which once again assessed that Russia did not hack the election, was never published. And then this is the meeting. This is the December the 9th meeting, White House Situation Room, 11:30 a.m. It's a 2-hour meeting. The chair was Susan Rice. You remember Susan Rice, the famous one who on January the 20th, noon on January the 20th, 2017.
Sent herself an email.
That's right, sent herself an email. And President Obama said, everything must be done by the book. And then he said, and again, everything must be done by the book. And so she's the chair at this meeting. The Secretary of State was there, so Kerry was there. Look who's with Kerry, Victoria Nuland. She was at this meeting. FBI was represented by Andrew McCabe. Clapper was at the meeting. Brennan was at this meeting. And then Justice Department, represented by Loretta Lynch. She of the person who met Bill Clinton on that plane. Mary McCord. And then is it Avril Haines, Lisa Monaco, and Ben Rhodes. So this is pretty much anyone who was anybody in the Obama administration was at the meeting. And then it was agreed that principals agreed to deny Russia the use of its residential and recreational compound at Pioneer Port on the Chesapeake Bay. It's very strange. Why would they decide on that? I mean, other than a kind of mean-spiritedness and the hope of provoking the Russians. I mean, that's what they decide on. Oh, we're going to deny Russia the use of its residential and recreational compound in Chesapeake Bay.
And this recreational compound is where they would celebrate their holidays. There was a huge recreational area for the children of the diplomats. I mean, it was a strongly non-political thing. Okay.
Right, that's right, exactly. Principals also recommended, pending the views of the U.S. mission to the UN and legal review, denying Russia the use of its residential and recreational compound in Glen Cove, New York.
So they can't do that. That's the UN. That's separate.
That's exactly it. It's very, very, that's right. You can't. The Department of State noted its preference that any action against the compounds be delayed to, among other things, allow for a potential agreement on Aleppo to be implemented. Yeah, so we want to work out a deal with Russia on Syria, and then we can take it.
So we want their help. We want their help now, so we can punish them later.
Exactly. State also will provide a matrix of possible Russian responses, both operationally and diplomatically, to the closure of the compounds. And remember, this is an outgoing administration. I mean, they've only got a few days left in office, and they're already talking about how Russia will respond, and they know that that's basically just going to be on Trump, the new president, an angry Russian response, but they're all talking about that. And then principals concurred with a number of measures state proposed to take with respect to Russian visas, in particular, leaving to the discretion of state and FBI the issuance of U.S. visas for Russian intelligence officers, holding Russian diplomats to the 48-hour travel notification requirement, and limiting the number of exceptions provided to Russian diplomats. State and FBI will draft, for further legal and policy review, a proposal for removing a number of suspected Russian intelligence officers in the United States. It's always interesting how they know somebody is an intelligence officer. I mean, anybody who's working at an embassy, I mean, his job is to find out as much as possible about the country to which you have been assigned. So how they know, oh, this is an intelligence officer. And then principals considered the cyber options and recommended against conducting either a spearphishing campaign or a denial of service attack against certain Russian entities. So they considered that, and then they decided, well, maybe it's not a great idea. But I got the impression that Obama did eventually agree to something like that.
Well, my understanding is that he asked about it, and when they told him what the potential consequences were, they could do it to us, he backed down. That's how I remember.
Right, but I remember that somehow that he actually put something in train, something was, something that was long term. He put it in train.
But what's important about all of this is that, as George said, this administration, they're turning off the lights. I mean, right. Where is the what is it, the interface with the new administration? Right. I mean, maybe you should have somebody from the Trump organization say, hey, this is what we're doing. Right. I mean, you're taking over in a few days. We just want to give you a heads up, okay? Yep. An intermediary. I mean, right. If they were truly interested in foreign threats, because this is not about foreign threats. This is right. about Donald Trump, right. Okay? Right. I mean, this shows the lack of any kind of honesty whatsoever.
Well, there's no honesty here, because what they're figuring on, Trump has said he's going to try and improve relations with Russia. That's going to be awfully hard, with improving relations with Russia after this. And then, of course, Michael Flynn responded in the way you would expect, and they have suspicion that what Flynn would do. He would talk to the Russian ambassador, and he tells the Russian ambassador, well, don't overreact. We're going to be in power really within a few days, and we're going to reassess everything. They, of course, were eavesdropping on this call, and then deliberately and mischievously miscast what he said, to suggest that he was sabotaging the existing administration policy.
Well, apropos to news that's going on today, George, what else did they talk about in that telephone call?
Well, you talk about Israel.
Yes.
Israel, yeah.
Oh, there was no Israel Gate, was there? There's an Israel Gate every single day in Washington, D.C., right. Okay? But right. No one ever talks about it, okay? Right. Oh, but if you do talk about it, you're an anti-Semite, okay? Or right. It goes on and on and on. That telephone call also had to do about Israel's illegal settlements in the West Bank, okay?
Well, that's right.
In the news.
That's right, because what had happened was there was a UN Security Council resolution. I can't remember who sponsored it, did the US play a part in sponsoring it? But anyway, the US was intended to abstain on this, on condemning on the settlements. But I can't remember whether the U.S. was a co-sponsor of this resolution. But either way, this was coming up, and they knew that the Obama administration, right at the very end, again, right in the last few days in office, they were going to abstain on the condemnation of Israeli settlements. And Flynn, I think, was saying that he was going to try and lobby some of the delegations, the UN delegations or on the Security Council, to vote against it, and then they wouldn't get a majority. And I think that's what he was telling the Kislyak. But it was very strange for him to do that, because Russia was supporting that resolution, so it was an odd. I mean, I think he was hoping that to persuade Russia not to support that resolution, but Russia was going to do it because Russia position on the settlements has been consistent over the years, and they weren't just going to abstain on an issue. However much they're like Israel, they're not going to just change their long-standing policy on the settlements. But yes, that has been quietly forgotten over the years. That's that whole issue. Now that was a remarkable thing, because with what they had now on Flynn was he was talking to Kislyak, he was trying to sabotage administration policy. And then, when the Russians, in the spirit of camaraderie, high spirits, they said, "You know what? We're not going to respond. No, we're not. We're not going to do. Usually the sort of tit for tat response. We're not going to do it. Spirit of Christmas. We're going to invite all of the American diplomats in Moscow to come to the Kremlin with their families and enjoy Christmas."
They stress the children. They
Exactly.
stress the children.
That's
Okay.
right. Exactly. In the spirit of Christmas, come with all your children and enjoy yourself in the Kremlin. And Obama, they said, "Ha ha, we got him. We got him. Why would the Russians do this? This is so unlike them. They always go tit for tat." And look, they didn't do it this time. That means Trump was obviously their man. Therefore, we need to continue with all of our surveillance, and particular surveillance of...
Yeah, but what it really shows is the Christian value of turning the other cheek.
Right.
That's the conclusion that you draw. A new administration coming in, Trump made it very, very clear. Wouldn't it be good to have better relations with Russia? Right. Okay, I mean, it's something. Okay. I mean, George, I'd like to talk a little bit what we talked about yesterday about the Christian church in Gaza, the killing of a American Palestinian in the West Bank. I have to say, every once in a while, I have a little bit of hope. George and I have this battle with hope. We're on hope's side, but it doesn't always. It very rarely works out. But there's a little bit of hope here. Oh, and plus, I got a lot of commentary from our segment on Mike Huckabee. Okay, which maybe he's a prototype of someone that's going to wake up. Now, don't count on it. Don't hold your breath. But his letter to the appropriate minister knocked me down like a feather. I never would have imagined a such dyed-in-the-wool Christian Zionist, a pastor himself, would say these types of things. And looking around the podcast world today's my day off, and it was raining all day, so I watched a lot of different reactions to it. I'm really happy with what we did yesterday, but this is something that gets people's attention, okay? And it is overwhelmingly negative, okay? So unfortunately, it takes attacking a Christian church, being spat upon if you wear a crucifix, to get people's attention. The genocide wasn't enough, apparently, but this does, which says a lot, and it's not a good thing about how we parse different tragedies around the world. But this isn't a very important story, okay? And I'm actually quite heartened by the coverage of it.
You're absolutely right. And it is interesting because we were talking about it because there were a number of issues that Huckabee raised. There was this Palestinian American who had been beaten to death and who was denied medical assistance that could have...
Think about that, everyone. He was physically beaten to death, a young man. And you had rescue services within eye distance,
Yes.
from what I understand, and
Right.
they weren't allowed to intervene. They beat to death.
Right.
They didn't shoot him.
Right.
This was part of a ritual.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that was an issue. And even Secretary of State Marco Rubio referred to it as murder. He called it murder. What had happened? So it wasn't just he was killed by somebody or other.
And he
It was
was killed in the West
murder.
Bank.
Yeah.
This would be the usual headline. He was killed.
That's right. That's right. So there was that. Then there was the arson of a Christian church in the West Bank, which Huckabee also was unhappy about. But the denial of the visas to these evangelical Christians, that got to him. Because that's who he is. He's a pastor. He's a pastor in a Baptist church, and that got him really upset because hey, those are my friends, and those are Israel's best friends, and this is how you treat them. And then you say, well, this is what they think of the goyim. I mean, somebody's got to tell him, yeah, they don't value the life of anyone else other than Israeli Jews. I mean, that's pretty much. Now, if he suddenly that becomes an awakening for him, I mean, you have to be optimistic to believe that, but nonetheless, it's quite possible. It says, yeah, they don't really value the human life of anyone else except their own. So
what does that have to do with the gospel?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, that's what it gets all down to. Okay. George and I discussed, the cynicism of people, and Mike Huckabee is a very cynical person. But as George has mentioned, there's a core element of him is his pastoral conviction.
Right.
And it shows he hit a brick wall. He saw his limits in supporting a regime that doesn't care about anyone except for its own. And actually, they don't even care completely for their own because they won't do anything to get their own captives back from Gaza.
That's right. So yesterday, I think it was yesterday, so there was another massacre of Palestinians queuing up for food. And this was actually UN distributed food from the UN World Food Program. And what's always interesting about these stories is that Israeli soldiers simply start shooting at a crowd. They don't do what you would expect. Okay, let's say, the crowd is out of control. Okay, you got but have you heard of crowd control? I mean, everybody else practices crowd control. There are all sorts of things that you do, like water cannons, tear gas, pepper spray, whatever.
George,
lots of things that you can do with crowd control.
Do you know how many police departments around the world send trainees to Israel for such things as crowd control?
Right.
I mean, the Israelis are really good at it. They've perfected it, okay?
Right.
But they won't use it. They themselves won't apply it.
They use live rounds. And no explanation has been offered as to why you're using live rounds. Why are you just simply shooting at a crowd who just basically are lining up for food? Don't give me that this is Hamas. There's no Hamas here. These are people lining up for food.
Why don't you use rubber bullets?
Exactly, rubber bullets. So here's a classic. This is from the New York Times today. Notice the evasive language used by the New York Times to describe what happened yesterday. It says, 2 deadly shootings in 2 days highlight dangers of aid distribution in Gaza. Oh, well, aid distribution.
Well, I mean,
very dangerous activity, aid distribution.
Dishonesty from the first letter in the head. I mean, the dishonesty is oozing. You haven't even started reading the article.
Aid distribution, that's probably one of the most dangerous activities there is. It's
Who knew?
Up there with, skiing, mountain skiing, you can't, aid distribution. On Saturday, Israeli soldiers shot Palestinians near an Israeli-backed food site. On Sunday, they fired at people gathering near a UN convoy. Both incidents were symptoms of broader problems. Very, very
This
broad.
is a problem, everyone. This is a problem.
Right. It's a problem.
How does this guy go home to his wife and family after writing something like
That's right.
this?
That's it. Exactly. And so it says, over the weekend, two deadly incidents on consecutive days highlighted how the two main ways of distributing food to the hungry in Gaza, one backed by Israel, the other involving the United Nations, both come with profound risk for Palestinian civilians. Well, yeah, it's kind of a risk.
Do you see how they're equivalent? The UN and Israel, it's like they're working together. They're of equal
Right.
merit. Okay, this is
Right.
profoundly untrue. Okay,
Yeah, of course it is. Of course it is. In an incident on Saturday, Israeli soldiers opened fire on civilians moving chaotically toward food distribution sites run by Israel-backed private contractors in Israel-controlled areas. So
why do
they
you think
opened.
Why do you think they're moving chaotically, George?
That's
Maybe
right.
they're
because
hungry.
because they're hungry. They badly need food. What does moving chaotically mean? I mean, was it single file, single file? You have to be single file.
Well,
Like
I mean, but again, where is the um, how is it? Where is responsibility here? So, open fired on civilians moving chaotically. Well, chaos is kind of scary, right? And
right,
so they're the predicate for what's happening. They're chaos.
right.
This is so dishonest. Okay.
Well, it's very dishonest because what is this? I mean, is this high school where everyone has to it's a single file, like children are told, single file, don't push in, single file, and if you don't don't do what teacher tells you, you're going to be shot dead. Um, so
Well, I mean, does this article say that aid is only at this point is only made available for 30 minutes a day? Well,
right.
I'm sorry, single file isn't going to work if you're hungry.
Well, of course not.
If you have to feed three children and your wife,
Right.
and you see thousands and thousands of people, and I don't know if you have a watch or not, but you're going to think,
Right.
I got to get there. I have
Well, yeah,
to.
no, of course not. But you're also, I mean, you still are looking for the explanation. Why are you using live ammunition? I mean, what are they doing wrong that they merit being, shot dead like as if it's a target range? So then it says, in another incident on Sunday, Israeli soldiers opened fire on civilians rushing to seize aid from a convoy of food trucks sent by the United Nations toward areas controlled by Hamas. Notice how it's so touching that the Israeli soldiers care so much about orderly distribution of food by the United Nations. Now, the United Nations has been pleading and begging for months and months and months to be allowed to distribute food. And here's the Israelis, protecting it. We can't have people rushing
Well,
food
if
trucks.
if you had left UNRWA alone, UNRWA was set up for refugee relief. They
Right.
had an entire infrastructure, warehouses, employees,
Right.
a timetable.
Right.
They were not seen as the Palestinians did not see them as
Right.
a threat. I
Right.
mean, Israel has for decades wanted to get rid of UNRWA, and they got it. Okay,
That's right.
and this is why you get this kind of chaos. They say in Hamas controlled area. How do you know that?
How do you know that?
How do
But
you
the
know
interesting thing, the Israeli claim that that Hamas is stealing the food. Even Cindy McCain, and Cindy McCain, I think, runs the World Food Program for the UN. Even Cindy McCain says there's no evidence Hamas is stealing food. That's Cindy McCain. So this claim, oh, we have to, Hamas is stealing the food. I mean, if you don't have even Cindy McCain in your corner, that just shows, what a thin excuse that is. And then as supporters of the Israel-backed system used the episode on Sunday to highlight the failures of the UN-led system.
Oh my God! This.
But I don't know. People don't seem to be getting shot at one and the other. Those favoring the UN.
This is paid propaganda. This is beyond absurd.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's right. Those favoring the UN system said the killings on Saturday illustrated the failures of Israel's approach. Well, God, I mean, it's one of those things, you say either, I say either. You say neither, I say neither. So, who knows what the truth is. What kind of ridiculous thing?
It's somewhere in the middle, George, probably.
That's right.
That's this. Oh,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Israel says it's necessary to put food distribution sites in areas beyond Hamas's control in order to make it harder for both fighters from the militant group and civilian looters to steal supplies. Again, it's so touching for them to worry about civilian looters. Notice, incidentally, that the United Nations, they don't seem to be worried. This is the Israelis saying, the United Nations saying, well, we're very worried about looters coming along and stealing the food. They haven't issued any complaint. They haven't said, well, we're worried about looters. We're worried about Hamas. It's Israel who's launching these live bullets and making this claim about civilian looters. Russia is the state of the United Nations.
Has there been any reports that Hamas are shooting people going to get aid? I've never heard of
I have never heard that.
Look, the fact of the matter is, ever since the blockade started after Hamas came to power, UNRWA has done an amazing job. The aid is sent in, and then it's Gaza that basically takes care of it. And it worked, okay?
Right.
And so why is Israel so worried about it? Okay, I mean, this is a starvation plan, and you're worried people are not being fed. I mean, this is
what's worrying? Worrying about the looters. And then critics of that approach say it forces hungry civilians to cross Israeli military lines, putting them at greater risk. Yes.
Where is the line?
That's right. I love this, putting them at greater risk. Unarmed civilians are apparently at great risk.
Unarmed civilians starving
unarmed civilians crossing military lines in order to get food are apparently a threat. They're presumably a threat. I'm not sure who to whom. They're presumably threatening Israeli soldiers. They're a threat. We had to shoot. We were defending ourselves from hungry, unarmed civilians. And then three broader dynamics highlight the problems associated with both approaches.
There's equivalency.
Three dynamics. I love dynamics.
And it's equivalent. There's equivalency here.
That's right. Yeah, both approaches. Yeah. In both incidents over the weekend, the Israeli military used live fire to contain unrest instead of using non-lethal forms of crowd control. Yeah, that's a puzzle, isn't it? That is definitely a head scratcher. Why would they use live fire to contain unrest instead of non-lethal forms of crowd control?
What about a water cannon?
Exactly, a water cannon, pepper spray. I mean, tear gas. I mean, all people have been using all sorts of things to control crowds forever, and you have no other recourse other than live ammunition. Civilians are also ready to risk death by Israeli gunfire to avoid death by starvation in Gaza. Well, at least the Times. This is way down in the Times. This is typical.
Yeah,
of Times. So, have it way down. Below the fold, below everything. Civilians are ready to risk death by Israeli gunfire to avoid death by starvation. That's it. That's it. Where food is scarce following Israel's 80-day blockade between March and May. And that's it. So you can see this anodyne way in which the New York Times reports, and this is an awful lot of people were killed. It's not like 2 or 3 people or whatever. This is huge. You read this. 73 people were killed.
This is every day.
This is every day. And you say, what were they doing? What, there were 73 people? Oh, they were lining up for food. Oh, well
were they armed?
No, none of these people are armed. There's no evidence.
Did
I
they
mean, if
show
they were armed,
resistance?
Israel would tell us, and Israel hasn't even claimed that they were armed.
Did they throw rocks? Did they,
No.
call you bad names?
Yeah.
This is such an see. This is media atrocity.
Right.
This is media atrocity.
Right.
It's just so beyond the pale. You know what they like to, what they always do, and all my life, what to do, what to do.
That's right. Well, that's always the classic New York Times, and then
sad story. It's what can we
sad. Exactly, and then as always with the New York Times, the key is always left somewhere near the bottom of the page. They're saying, hey, they're willing to risk getting shot because the alternative is starving to death. That's it. That's
how
the
many
dilemma.
articles? How many articles? Because George is really good at this. We'll take any story. Russiagate. Okay. Officials say Russia highly likely was involved in cyber violations during the election, and then in the last paragraph, to date, no information has been verified.
That's right.
The people say. That's a new one for me. Last 20 years, the people say.
That's right. Exactly.
They contradict. At the very end, they contradict the entire story. Or like what was it? Ukraine has a Nazi problem, and then the first paragraph. There's a few incidents where journalists have seen swastika tattoos, and by the end of the article, it's ubiquitous in the Ukrainian army. I mean, they go from a couple of incidents, isolated, and to the very end, it's a big problem. Do that. We've done this hundreds of times, George.
Well, they do that because, of course, they know. First of all, very few people go beyond the headline. I mean, most people go beyond the.
You're not ready for George.
And no, but it's very rare because normally we see a headline. I've seen it move on to the next story. Then you read the first. They don't go much beyond the first paragraph. Then even fewer make it below the fold. How many make it to the end? Almost nobody makes it to the end because the articles are so tedious. And then the killer punch is right at the end. These are very elaborately crafted. This is not just by happenstance. These are editors and reporters who deliberately craft these articles. So you say, well, we mentioned it. You can't tell us we didn't mention it.
And just to drive the point home, a lot of these articles have 4, 5, 6, 7 authors.
Yes.
So it's passed around a lot. Yeah. Speaking of media, George, well, what about the Trump's birthday card to Jeffrey Epstein? Right. I know everybody wants us to go with the Epstein story. We've already kind of made our position clear. Right. Just to reiterate, release what you have, okay? And let the rest of us decide. You can draw your own conclusions. I'm all for that, okay? But I am not going to draw conclusions based on what everybody else says. Don't do that. George doesn't do it either, okay? You can dislike us for that. That's all nice and fine. But here's something the media claims that they have access to or have seen, okay? That's something worth talking about, okay? But I'm not going to, just because some guy that has been poring over publicly known articles and say, this is a definitive conclusion. I don't do that, okay?
No, I'm very skeptical of the story. I think because I don't think it sounds very much like Trump. It's not Trump's voice. He doesn't talk like that. Also, they haven't shown it to anyone. I mean, show us the letter. I mean,
I see. This is what I'm saying, George. This is exactly what I'm saying. Right. Okay, but is there a list? Well, then show me the list. Okay. Right. Oh, there is no list. So then, why did you say there was a list?
That's right. And show it
exactly. Birthday card. Trump wrote this birthday card, and
it's a book.
Okay, then show it to me.
Exactly. It was a book. I mean, the Wall Street Journal claimed this was a book. A lot of people contributed to this book. Well, show us the book. Show us everyone who contributed to this. And it's to me, it's very, very doubtful. All these years, this is from 2003. So, more than 20 years, no one has talked about this. Trump had written this letter, and for 20 years, No one knew anything about this, and now you claim you have it, but you're not prepared to show it to anyone. I'm very dubious, and the fact that Trump has now gone to court would suggest that he's pretty confident that of his case, because ultimately he doesn't really need to deny this. He says, look, I mean, this was more than 20 years. In 2003, no one really had any idea about Epstein's activities. So, I didn't do anything wrong. I never made secret of the fact that I used to be friends with him. So I didn't do anything wrong. I mean, there was nothing in that letter would say, hey, pass along some of these 14-year-old girls or anything like that. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. So I'm very skeptical. And I would really like to see Rupert Murdoch brought down. I think he's a poisonous character. He's been poisoned for decades and decades and decades. It would be really nice if if he got badly mauled in this case, because I think this would really hurt him, hurt the whole Murdoch brand. It would hurt the Wall Street Journal.
Well,
It would be very nice.
What's interesting in the sense that things can be cleared up very carefully. Show the evidence. If you don't have it,
Right.
Then you should. This is defamation. And face the consequences. This is the kind of thing I like to talk about. Okay, because when I came across, I think it's possible. I'm not taking the same position as George here, but the gauntlet has been dropped. Okay, then everybody get in your corners and go at it. And I'm more than happy for that to happen. Okay.
Right.
Right.
Right. No, I think so, and I think that ultimately the ball is in Murdoch's court. Show us what you have. You've made a very serious allegation here. You can't just hide and say, well, we've got this book and there's a letter, but we're not going to show it to you. Just show us. You want to, and then we can look at it and say, well, look. I mean, if it does exist, it's also very, not at all clear that that somebody else may not have just forged it, including Ghislaine Maxwell, because she's the one who put together this book, this kind of 50th birthday party, 50th birthday gift to her lover or whatever their relationship was. It's kind of thing. It's a very girly thing to do. Oh, I'm going to all your friends. We're going to write a kind of a letter or a poem or paint a picture or whatever. It's like she put this together.
That's an interesting point. I hadn't even thought about that. It could, if such a thing exists, it could be a forgery.
Exactly. She made, she did it because after all, I think Jeffrey Epstein will look at it and say, "Oh, it's the thought that counts." This isn't it nice? He writes me a letter or a poem or whatever. That is so sweet. I mean, it's a ridiculous thing, but women kind of do that kind of thing. Oh, I'm going to put together this big birthday card with people writing poems. I mean, it's like there's nothing worse than bad poetry. But that's a kind of the 50th birthday party.
Yeah, but this is what's interesting. One of the reasons why I took an interest in this story is that it looks like the Democrats they want to take on this issue here. Okay,
Yeah.
This is something that they want to hang their hat on. Okay, I'm not sure it's a good idea.
No.
But it seems that this is going to be. They're not going to let this go away. Okay. They sense that Trump has weakness here. Again, if it was 2003, before.
Yeah, it was before. That's it.
Legal problems.
Right.
I mean, I don't. As George and I like to say, what's the harm? Okay.
Right.
What does it? What does it mean?
Right.
Why is it important? I don't see
Right.
that it's important. Because he said they were
Yeah.
friends and they stopped being friends. That's the record.
That's right. Exactly. They stopped being friends a long time ago, and Trump never concealed the fact that they had been friends at some point. But this was all of this was long before the case was burst into the public consciousness. A lot of people continued to be friends with him after 2008. I think Bill Gates continued to be friends. Ehud Barak continued to be friends. A lot of people. So Trump, in fact, didn't. But I don't think it was because of the case. I think they had some other falling out. I think it was some real estate deal in Florida. They were rivals, and Trump won out, and I think Epstein was upset that he won out, and so on. But that's why I think that if indeed Trump has got a strong case, I think this is going to be really damaging to the Murdoch brand, because this, the other thing, the Dominion systems, I don't think that hurt him so much, but losing to Trump, that's going to really destroy the reputation of the Murdoch.
Well, I mean, there is a difference
entities among people on the right, which is Murdoch's base.
There is a difference here. Dominion wanted, they felt that their name had been besmirched, and they wanted some financial compensation. I think their name and their brand was far more important to them, and that's what they wanted most. Okay, with this case, Trump is not going to go for a humble apology. Okay?
No, he's not going to go with a humble apology, but for the right, that's Murdoch's constituency. I mean, he has no other readers. I mean, the only people who watch Fox News, who read the New York Post, and read the Wall Street Journal, these are all people who are on the right. If you absolutely sully your reputation by losing to Trump, and Trump says, "Hey, you tried to destroy me," I think he's going to lose completely. That's his entire business model will just be destroyed.
Just a second ago, I said that it looks like the Democrats are going to take this issue and use it against them. But what's being played out now is the old right and the new right, because that's what Murdoch is. I mean,
it's the old right.
They never liked. They apparently, according to Tucker, after Tucker was fired, they wanted him to run against Trump.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah, that's right. I'm sure Tucker's right. He said it on the record, and they could have denied it. They had an opportunity to do it. They never denied that they were trying to persuade him to run against Trump. And of course, Murdoch did want to destroy Trump way back in 2015. You remember when he set up that question for Megyn Kelly that she was just going to destroy him, with women and so on. So this has been a long-standing rift between Trump and Murdoch. So I think it's going to be quite interesting. One other thing, though, before we go, is this Azerbaijan. We kind of pay attention to this story, and there's something menacing about the story, because Azerbaijan just seems escalating. Why is Azerbaijan escalating? This is a country of 11 million. I mean, you're 11
million. It must have powerful patrons. It must have powerful patrons.
Exactly. So here, the story today, and here we have, this is from Euronews. Azerbaijan to file international lawsuits against Russia over the plane crash, and say Aliyev has announced that his country is prepared to file lawsuits in international courts against Russia regarding that plane crash from last December, which we talked about a number of times. And so Aliyev said that even though the circumstances of the incident are as clear as day, Azerbaijan has received no meaningful response from Russia 7 months after the crash. And then Aliyev claimed that Azerbaijan has a clear understanding of what happened to the Azerbaijan Airlines. We know what happened, and we can prove it. And we know the Russian officials know what happened. So he's going ahead. And then Aliyev noted that the Azerbaijani prosecutor general has sent requests to the head of Russia's investigative committee, and has thus far only been informed that the investigation is ongoing. And so now you wonder also, well, why the rush? I mean, it's like he's already bringing a lawsuit. I mean, presumably, this does take a bit of time to work out exactly what happened. I don't think it's entirely clear what exactly happened. But either way, he's in a real rush to file the suit. And then Azerbaijan's demands, according to Aliyev, are a guilty plea from Russia, prosecution of those responsible for downing the plane, payment of compensation to the families of the victims, and compensation for damages suffered by Azar, the airline. And then Aliyev's comments come just hours after he reiterated Baku's unwavering support to Ukraine. Azerbaijan unequivocally supports Ukraine's territorial integrity, sovereignty, and internationally recognized borders. And then here we have another story. And then, despite Kazakh-led inquiry, Azerbaijan to take plane crash case to international courts. And it says, after months of collaborating with investigation led by Kazakhstan, but Kazakhstan hasn't come up with any definitive conclusion as to what happened, which is kind of also interesting. It says that Azerbaijan's turn to international institutions reflects frustration with what it views as Russian intransigence, as well as the sensitivities for Kazakhstan as it leads a probe that could implicate Russia. And then, in a sense, Kazakhstan is caught in the middle, unable to, so far, to satisfy Azerbaijan's push for accountability for the crash. And then, then it says, flush with military victories of Armenia and buoyed by close ties with allies such as Turkey, Azerbaijan feels less constrained to nurture its traditional relationship with Moscow. And then on Saturday, President Aliyev referred to years of international investigation inquiries that found Russian-backed separatist rebels had shot down Malaysia Airlines Flight 17 over eastern Ukraine in 2014, and that Russia bore responsibility, a conclusion rejected by Moscow. Aliyev said Azerbaijan was prepared to wait for just as long to clear up the Azerbaijan Airlines crash and so on. So, as we were saying, he has to have some people behind him, because country of 11 million, I mean, yeah, he's. I know those Baltic Chihuahuas. They're usually a population of one or 2 million. But the Chihuahuas are in NATO. They feel brave, growling at Russia because they think they've got NATO behind them. Aliyev doesn't really have anyone behind him, or does he? And that's, I think, that's the interesting aspect of this, because he's going out of his way to antagonize Russia. So you have to wonder what's really driving him on.
Well, what's called the 12-day war, Azerbaijan, it would seem, played a very important role for drone strikes and air cover against Iran at the behest of the Israelis. And of course, Turkey is hip deep in all of this.
Right.
So there is a very, very dangerous gambit going on here. Aliyev, I would caution you, don't piss off the Russians too much, okay?
I would, yes.
Because there is no symmetry of power here at all.
No, there really isn't. And so he's got 11 million. So he's got Russia in the north, and then he's got Iran in the south. And there's no love lost between Azerbaijan and Iran, to say the least, precisely because of what you just said. First of all, Azerbaijan is providing oil to Israel through Turkey, which obviously Iran isn't too happy with. But if Israel is using Azerbaijan territory and Azerbaijan airspace to wage war against Iran, then that's a kind of serious problem.
Well,
Iran is also that's you're 8 times the size of Azerbaijan. So
it's a problem, because if Iran, out of self-defense and protecting its sovereignty, were to do something against Azerbaijan, what do they have to worry about? Oh, the Americans might bomb you. They've already done that. Okay, Israel might bomb you. Oh, you've already done that. I mean, this is a very risky game. Okay, and if Azerbaijan is a very fragile place in many ways. Okay, it wouldn't take much to destabilize it if Russia really wanted to do that. It doesn't want to do that, but it's not about Azerbaijan. It's just what we've been talking about. It's this patchwork
Right.
of geopolitics converging together.
Right.
That's what makes it very dangerous. And Azerbaijan, you're in the middle of it. That's not a good place to be.
No, it isn't, and it's very. But it does raise a question: is who does Azerbaijan think is going to come in on its behalf? Because it's one thing to bomb Iran on behalf of Israel. I don't know that the United States is going to bomb Iran on behalf of Azerbaijan. I mean, I don't think there's any great commitment. I mean, they might condemn Iran, aggression and blah blah blah. But I don't think they're going to go to war with Iran on Azerbaijan's behalf. I'm not even sure Israel is
Well,
happy
also,
to go
George, I
along with
mean,
this.
also Azerbaijan is a family dictatorship.
Right.
Okay, I mean, if something were to happen to the family,
Right.
I mean, then Azerbaijan becomes a very different place. Okay,
Right.
this goes all the Aliyev family has been ruling there since the Soviet era.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. That's right.
It doesn't matter what the political system is. It's that,
Right.
as I keep telling everybody, in that part of the world, don't think of themselves as nation states. They think of themselves as families. Okay.
That's right. All of these sort of entities were kind of incorporated within the Soviet Union, and they tried all sorts of different things. They first created that Transcaucasian Federation during the 1920s, and that comprised Azerbaijan, Armenia, and Georgia. Then they dissolved that in the 1930s, and they became these three separate republics. But they knew then that this is a real problem, as to exist as a separate republics, which is why the dissolution of the Soviet Union was so catastrophic. Just simply tossing it aside, knowing how problematic.
Well, everybody keep in mind when there was a referendum on maintaining the Soviet Union months before it was dissolved, is that most of the republics wanted to stay inside the Soviet Union, because when the Soviet Union would disappear, the problems would emerge, and they have.
They have exactly, and Putin, he tends to bring up the subject of the famous debate between Lenin and Stalin, as to when they created the Soviet Union, because Lenin wanted to create the Soviet Union, which gave great deal of autonomy to the republic, autonomy to the point of secession. Stalin said, well, actually, why don't we just make these republics as constituent republics of Russia? And that would make secession much more difficult. And Stalin was obviously the more far-seeing person, but Stalin lost the debate, Lenin won. And I think Putin is suggesting it probably would have been better had Stalin won that debate and the Soviet Union had not been created, and they were indeed republics of the Russian Federation. And so I think wouldn't have had these problems. And I mean, so long as the Communist Party was there, they could keep it together. But once the Communist Party started dissolving in the late 1980s, thanks to Gorbachev and Yeltsin, nothing was going to keep these republics together. So it's really quite.
Well, I think also, it's keep in mind here what Aliyev wants, what Turkey wants, what Israel wants can be very different from what the United States wants.
Yes.
Because the United States, this is, we just have a new front against Russia and against Iran. Wow, that's a 2-for-1.
Right,
and
right.
It's almost just that simplistic.
Right.
It's not very well thought out at all. And NATO has been sniffing around. It's been sniffing around for years. Okay. Yep. And what medium-sized powers do is you play the table. Azerbaijan is not a regional power.
No, it's not. It isn't a regional power, and that's why it's playing this dangerous game, as did Georgia in 2008. in thinking that somebody's going to come in on your behalf, you're a long way from anything. Now, maybe Aliyev thinks that Erdogan is going to come in on his behalf, but Erdogan's a very canny player. He doesn't take unnecessary risks, and this will be a very big risk.
Apropos, George, I mean, what's going on in Syria right now? That was very much of an Erdogan project
Right,
using an Erdogan
right,
proxy that
right.
had nominal support from the Israelis. Well, the Israelis are saying, well, that was then, now is now. Okay,
Yeah,
what is Turkey getting involve itself to protect the quote unquote new regime in Damascus? I tend to doubt it.
yeah,
Okay, so
yeah.
Alev, watch what's going on in Syria.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think Tiger's going to do it. Not going to go to war on behalf of Jelani. That's just
No.
not going to happen. Anyway, before we go, thank DJ. Thank you very much for your generosity. Really appreciate it. It's always very, very nice. Thank you. And it says DJ says post-Western media stress syndrome, also known as Georgia syndrome, when think tank graduates perform rhetorical archaeology to justify expired hegemony, vacillating between tantrums about basic historical ignorance and face palming through press secretary briefing while the clown car accelerates toward the cliff's edge. That's kind of poetry. I mean, that's really,
Well,
really,
I think we
really
should do we should do a podcast on that message.
on that message. Exactly.
Lovely.
Anyway, thank you very much, everybody who joined us. Thank you very much, those who contributed to us. The dog, I can see the dogs are getting very restless. Hey, a lot of talk, not much money changing hands. So that's the way they think. So tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern Time, I'm doing my solo. And then next Monday, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, we'll be back doing our joint live stream. Until then, all the best. Bye bye. See you.